My wife demanded that I apologize to her male best friend for embarrassing him. I said, okay. But I already knew this wasn't going to be the kind of apology she expected. I went to his house while his wife was there. I carried a folder in my hand. When they both sat down, I looked at them calmly and said, I'm here to apologize, but not for what you think. What I showed them next shattered 2 marriages in less than 10 minutes. My name is Vincent Harlow. I'm 42 years old, a senior cloud solutions engineer at a medical IT company in Portland. Until 3 weeks ago, I believed I had a solid life, a stable marriage, a good home, 2 amazing kids, Dylan, 16, and Chloe, 14. Everything looked right from the outside. That illusion ended on a Thursday night. I walked through the front door after a brutal 12-hour shift. The kind of day that drains you completely, server failures, nonstop pressure, barely a moment to breathe. I hadn't even eaten, but the moment I stepped inside, I knew something was off. Natalie was standing in the kitchen waiting for me. Arms crossed, jaw tight. That look on her face, the one that meant I had already done something wrong before even speaking. We need to talk, she said immediately. I hadn't even set my bag down. I loosened my tie slowly. About what? Trevor called, she said. He's upset about last weekend. Trevor Ashford, her best friend for 6 years. Married to Paige. On the surface, he was a decent guy. Friendly, polite. But lately, something about him had been bothering me. What about it? I asked, even though I already knew. You embarrassed him, she said sharply. At the barbecue. I grabbed a glass of water, buying myself a few seconds. When he hugged me after I told him about the promotion, she continued. You pulled him aside and said something about boundaries. He felt attacked. I stared at her. His hand was on your back for 10 seconds, I said quietly. That's not normal. She threw her hands up in frustration. Oh my God. Here we go again. You're being paranoid. Paranoid. I turned fully toward her. I didn't make a scene. I spoke to him privately. Well, Paige noticed the tension, she snapped. Now everything is awkward. She stepped closer, lowering her voice into that calm, controlled tone she used when she had already decided how things would end. I need you to apologize. I blinked. Apologize? Yes. Fix this. Show him you respect our friendship. Our friendship, not our marriage. Not my feelings. The way she said it told me everything. I set the glass down slowly and studied her face. The tension in her posture. The way she avoided eye contact. The faint flush in her cheeks. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. How long had this been going on? Had I missed it? Or had I simply refused to see it? All right, I said quietly. She looked surprised. Really? Yeah, I'll apologize. Relief flooded her face. She smiled, soft, warm, familiar. The same smile I had fallen in love with 17 years ago. But now it looked different. Now it looked like victory. I'll handle it. I added. We'll have a real conversation. She nodded, satisfied. She had no idea what kind of conversation I was actually planning. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was angry. Anger would have been easier. What kept me awake was something colder, clarity. The kind that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself. I lay there beside her, listening to her steady breathing, watching the ceiling fan spin slowly above us. She fell asleep easily, probably relieved that I had agreed without a fight. But my mind was racing. All the small things I had ignored started lining up. The late-night messages she would smile at, but never show me. The new perfume she started wearing months ago. The way she angled her phone away whenever I walked into the room. The softness in her voice when she said his name. Around 2 in the morning, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, then again, then again. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake up. I waited. 5 minutes. Then I reached over carefully and picked it up. No passcode. That alone made my chest tighten. The screen lit up with message previews. Trevor, did you talk to him? Is he going to apologize? I miss you. I hate that we have to be careful. I felt something heavy settle in my chest, but I stayed calm. I opened the messages and scrolled. There was nothing obvious. Nothing that could stand alone as proof. But it was there, in every word. The closeness, the familiarity, the kind of connection that shouldn't exist between 2 people who weren't married to each other. I started taking screenshots, one after another. Then I emailed everything to myself. But I didn't stop there. I checked her photo gallery. Old backups. Shared accounts she had forgotten were still linked. And then I found it. A photo from 3 months ago. Natalie, sitting in a softly lit hotel room. A glass in her hand. A faint smile on her face. The caption read, "Sometimes you need to feel alive again." My hands tightened. I checked the details. Seattle. The same weekend she had told me she was at a work conference. Trevor had posted a photo that weekend too, at a restaurant by the waterfront. And in the reflection behind him, there was a silhouette. A woman. Her build. Her posture. It was her. I kept going. Bank records. Cash withdrawals. Small amounts. Always on the days she claimed to be out with friends. Hotel charges in different cities. Trips she had supposedly taken alone. By 4 in the morning, I had everything. Not just suspicion. Proof. A timeline that stretched back over a year. Careful. Hidden. Consistent. I put her phone back exactly where it had been. Then I lay down again. She shifted in her sleep, reaching out briefly before settling back. For a moment, I just stared at the ceiling. Everything had changed. The life I thought I had was gone, and in its place was something colder, something sharper. A plan. Tomorrow, I would begin the
San
next
Diego
step.
last month.
Because if the
True
truth
guest
was going to come out,
a king bed.
it wouldn't happen
Champagne
quietly.
service.
Every single booking followed the same pattern. I photographed every confirmation email with my phone, making sure I didn't miss a single detail. Dates, locations, timestamps, everything. Then I went deeper. Her cloud storage. Buried in a subfolder labeled Backup 2023, I found something that made my chest tighten before I even opened it. A document titled Notes. At first glance, it looked harmless. Just short entries. Random thoughts. But it wasn't random. It was a diary, and every line in it cut deeper than the last. March 15th. Told Vincent I had a client dinner. Trevor met me at the Marriott downtown. He makes me feel like I'm 25 again. I paused, staring at the screen, then kept going. April 3rd. Another business trip excuse. This is getting easier. Vincent never questions anything anymore. My jaw tightened. May 20th. Trevor says he loves me. I think I love him too. How did this happen? I read that line twice. Then a third time. My hand stayed steady as I took photos of each entry, but inside me, something was changing. This wasn't the sharp pain of shock anymore. It was something colder, something controlled, something deliberate. I wasn't breaking. I was becoming very, very clear. I heard the shower turn off upstairs. Immediately, I closed everything, returned the laptop exactly how I found it, and went downstairs. By the time Natalie came down 20 minutes later, I was already making coffee. She looked polished, put together, calm, like nothing had changed. "You're up early," she said, pouring herself a cup. "Couldn't sleep?" I replied evenly. "Been thinking about Trevor." She glanced at me, curious. "I should probably reach out to him," I continued. "Clear the air." The shift in her expression was immediate. Hope. Relief. "Really?" she said quickly. "Maybe this weekend? Saturday afternoon works?" I said. "I'll text him today." She smiled, stepping closer, placing a quick kiss on my cheek. "Thank you, Vincent. That means a lot." I watched her walk out of the house a few minutes later. The sound of her heels fading down the hallway. The faint scent of her perfume lingering behind. That perfume. The one she started wearing months ago. The one I now couldn't stop associating with someone else. When the door closed, I didn't waste time. I opened my laptop and pulled up property records. Something had been bothering me. Trevor's lifestyle didn't make sense. He worked in commercial real estate, sure, but not at the level that explained the trips, the hotels, the gifts. He was spending like someone with deeper pockets. So I started digging, and then I found it. Ashford Properties, LLC. Trevor's name was listed as Vice President of Operations. But the ownership structure told a different story. 35% of the company was held by an investment group, VH Investments, my investment firm, the one I had quietly built years ago, the one Natalie didn't know existed. I leaned back slowly in my chair, staring at the screen. No, there was no way. I immediately pulled on my portfolio manager's contact and made the call. "Gerald, it's Vincent. I need some information about Ashford Properties." "Of course," he said. "That's been a solid investment. Consistent returns. Who runs operations?" I heard him typing. "Let's see." Trevor Ashford. He actually founded it. Your investment helped them expand. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course it did. And if he were removed? I asked quietly. Gerald hesitated. Well, with your stake, you'd have significant influence. The board would need to approve it, but your voice would carry weight. What? Just reviewing risk, I said. We ended the call, and I sat there in silence. The irony settled in slowly. The trips, the hotels, the life he was living. Part of it was funded by me. I had unknowingly helped build the life he used to step into mine. Saturday afternoon came faster than I expected. Dylan asked for the car to meet his friends. I handed him the keys and watched him leave, then turned back inside. Chloe was curled up on the couch, focused on her laptop. Hey, I said gently. Can I ask you something? She pulled out her earbuds. Sure, Dad. I sat across from her, choosing my words carefully. Have you noticed anything different about your mom lately? Her expression shifted. Subtle, but I caught it. What do you mean? She asked. Just anything that feels off, I said. You can be honest with me. She hesitated, then slowly closed her laptop. Dad, I wasn't going to say anything. My chest tightened. But what? I asked softly. She looked down at her hands. Last month, when you were in Seattle, Mom had someone over. The room felt smaller. Who? I asked, even though I already knew. Mr. Ashford. She swallowed. I came home early from Emma's house. I forgot my charger. There was a car outside I didn't recognize. I stayed very still. When I walked in, they were in the kitchen, standing really close. And when they saw me, they moved apart really fast. I closed my eyes briefly. Did they say anything? I asked. Mom said he stopped by for work, Chloe replied. But the way they looked at each other, her voice cracked slightly. She made me promise not to tell you. She said you'd get the wrong idea. I moved beside her and put an arm around her shoulders. Hey, you didn't do anything wrong, I said quietly. She leaned into me. Are you and Mom having problems? She asked in a small voice. We're working through some things, I said carefully. But whatever happens, none of this is your fault. Or Dylan's. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I took a breath. There's something else I need to ask you, I said. And I need you to be completely honest. She looked up at me. Has your mom ever asked you to keep other secrets from me? She hesitated, then nodded. Sometimes packages come when you're not home, she said. She tells me to bring them inside before you get back. My stomach tightened. What kind of packages? I don't know, she said. She says there's surprises for you. But your birthday isn't for months. I felt that cold clarity settle back into place. Where does she keep them? In her closet, Chloe said quietly. In the back corner. Behind her coats. I nodded slowly. Everything was lining up now. Every piece. Every lie. And I knew exactly what I needed to do next. Because the truth wasn't just going to come out. It was going to be undeniable. After Chloe went upstairs, I sat there for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then I stood up and walked slowly to our bedroom. Natalie was at the gym, her new Saturday routine. It had started about 6 months ago. Long sessions, she said, helped her clear her mind. I had never questioned it. Until now. I opened her closet and pushed aside the winter coats. Behind them, hidden neatly, were 3 stacked boxes. My hands moved carefully as I opened the first one. Inside were men's clothes. Designer shirts, still with tags attached. A leather jacket. Expensive cologne. None of it belonged to me. The sizes were wrong. Everything in that box was meant for someone else. For him. I opened the second box. More of the same. Carefully chosen items. Thoughtful purchases. Personal. Intimate in a way that made my chest tighten. Then I opened the third box. And everything inside me went still. Medical paperwork. I pulled it out slowly, my eyes scanning the document. A clinic visit. 8 months ago. An abortion procedure. I read it again. And again. Natalie had been pregnant. And she had ended it. Without ever telling me. My hand tightened around the paper. Because there was something else. Something that made this even colder. 3 years ago, after Chloe was born, I had undergone a procedure. We had talked about it. Agreed together that our family was complete. She had driven me home afterward. She knew. That child could not have been mine. The room felt heavy. Silent. I took photos of everything. Every document. Every detail. Then I carefully placed everything back exactly how I found it. closed the boxes, covered them again with coats, and walked downstairs. My phone buzzed just as I reached the living room. A message. Trevor. Hey man, Natalie said you wanted to talk. Want to grab a drink sometime this week? I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I typed back. Actually, how about I come by your place tomorrow afternoon? Around 2. We can talk with Paige there too. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, then came back again. Sure, that works. See you then. I set the phone down and looked out the window. The street was quiet, peaceful, normal. In less than 24 hours, none of that would matter. Everything was about to change. Sunday afternoon, at 1:45, I pulled into Trevor's driveway. His house looked exactly like you'd expect. Clean, comfortable, carefully maintained. The kind of place that suggested stability. The kind of place built on appearances. Trevor opened the door before I even knocked. Vincent, he said with a practiced smile. Come in. Paige was already seated in the living room. She smiled politely, though there was something uncertain in her eyes. We all sat down. For a moment, no one spoke. Then I placed a folder on the table in front of me. I came to apologize, I said calmly. Trevor nodded, leaning back slightly. Yeah, I figured there was just some misunderstanding. I interrupted quietly. Just not the kind you think. The room shifted. I opened the folder. The first document I placed on the table was a photograph. Trevor's smile faded. Paige leaned forward slightly. That was taken in Seattle, I said. 3 months ago. I placed another sheet down. And this is the hotel booking. 2 guests. Same weekend. Paige picked it up slowly, her hands already beginning to tremble. I didn't stop. I laid out screenshots of messages, printed copies of conversations, then the bank records. Our joint account, I said evenly. Money meant for my family. I pointed to the withdrawals. 200 here, 300 there, over 40,000 in a year. Trevor stood up abruptly. You had no right. Your finances became my concern the moment they involved my household, I said calmly. He froze. I leaned forward slightly. Here's something interesting, I continued. Ashford Properties. Your company. His eyes narrowed. I own 35% of it. Silence. Through an investment firm you never knew about, I added. Which means a portion of your lifestyle was funded by me. The weight of that settled heavily in the room. Every dinner, every trip, every gift, I said, indirectly paid for with my money. Then I pulled out the final document. I handed it directly to Paige. This is the hardest part. She hesitated before taking it. Her eyes moved across the page. And then, something in her expression broke. Her breathing changed. A small, broken sound escaped her throat. Paige, Trevor started, reaching toward her. She pulled away instantly. Don't touch me. Her voice was shaking. I spoke quietly. I had a medical procedure 3 years ago, I said. My wife knew. We made that decision together. Paige's grip tightened on the paper. So, when she became pregnant, I knew it wasn't mine. The room felt like it had no air left in it. Trevor said nothing. Paige stood slowly, still holding the documents. She didn't look at either of us. She just turned and walked upstairs. Her footsteps echoed through the house. Trevor turned to me. All the charm was gone now. What do you want? He asked, his voice low. I stood, gathering my folder. I came to apologize, I said. He stared at me. So here it is. I met his eyes. I'm sorry I didn't see what you really were sooner. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry I let you into my home, around my children. I paused. And I'm sorry for what happens next. His expression darkened. Are you threatening me? No, I said calmly. Just stating facts. I adjusted the folder under my arm. Tomorrow morning, your board will receive a full report on your conduct. His face went pale. As the largest shareholder, I'll be recommending your immediate removal. I'll let that sink in. I'm also filing for divorce. Silence. Everything becomes part of the record, I continued. Messages. Transactions. All of it. You can't, he started. I can, I said. And I will. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Trevor. He didn't respond. Tell Natalie I said hello. I added quietly. She'll probably call you tonight. I opened the door. Because when everything falls apart, people tend to reach for what they think will save them. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. And for the first time in days, I felt nothing. No anger. No hesitation. Just clarity. The kind that comes when there's nothing left to lose. I drove home in silence. The road stretched ahead of me, familiar but distant, like I was moving through a life that no longer belonged to me. My hands were steady on the wheel, but inside, everything had already shifted. When I pulled into the driveway, Natalie's car was there. She had said she was going to a Sunday yoga class. I sat in the car for a moment, staring at the house, the place where everything had once felt safe. Then I stepped out and walked inside. She was in the kitchen, making tea, dressed in her workout clothes. Relaxed, calm, like it was any ordinary day. She turned when she heard me and smiled. "Hey," she said warmly. "How did it go with Trevor?" I set my keys down slowly. "It went well," I replied. "Very productive conversation." She smiled wider, relieved. "I knew you'd work things out," she said. "I told you he wasn't." "Oh, we clarified exactly what he is," I interrupted quietly. I leaned against the counter, watching her closely. "I spoke with both Trevor and Paige," I added. I thought it was important she was there too. Her expression changed, just slightly. "Paige was there?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I brought some documents. Thought it would help make everything clear." She froze. "Hotel records, messages, financial transactions." Her hand tightened around the mug. "And medical records," I continued calmly. "From that clinic visit a few months ago." The mug slipped from her fingers. It shattered against the tile floor, hot tea spilling everywhere. But she didn't move. She just stood there, frozen. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" I asked. My voice didn't rise. That was the strangest part. It was calm, controlled, cold. "Vincent," she whispered, "it's not what you think. I think my wife has been involved with Trevor Ashford for over a year," I said steadily. "I think she became pregnant and made a decision without telling her husband." Her face crumpled. "And I think she's been taking money from our family to support him." I straightened slightly. "Tell me which part I'm wrong about." Tears filled her eyes. "I can explain," she said, her voice shaking. "Save it," I replied. I turned and walked toward the stairs. "I've already filed for divorce." Her breath caught. "You'll be served tomorrow," I continued. "I'm taking the kids tonight." "You can't take my children," she cried, her voice rising in panic. I stopped halfway up the stairs and turned back slowly. "Our children," I corrected. "And yes, I can." Her face went pale. "They already know," I said quietly. "Chloe saw him here. She told me everything." Shock hit her like a wave. "She wouldn't." "She did," I said, "because she knows the difference between right and wrong." I held her gaze for a moment. "Something she didn't learn from you." I turned and continued upstairs. Behind me, I could hear her breaking, but I didn't stop. In Dylan's room, he was sitting at his desk, pretending to focus on his work. But I could see it in his eyes. He already knew something was wrong. "Pack a bag," I said gently. "We're leaving for a few days." He nodded without asking questions. "Is this because of Mom?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said. He swallowed hard, then stood and started gathering his things. "I heard her on the phone last week," he said after a moment. "She didn't sound like she was talking to a friend." I nodded. "I know. In Chloe's room. She was already packing." Tears streamed down her face as she folded her clothes with shaking hands. "Is it really over?" she asked. I walked over and pulled her into a hug. "The marriage is over," I said softly. "But you and your brother are not losing me. Ever." She held on to me tightly. Downstairs, I could hear Natalie on the phone. Her voice was frantic, desperate, probably calling Trevor. Good. Let them face it together. We loaded the car in silence. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "This is Paige. I just want to say thank you for telling me the truth. And I'm sorry for what you're going through. You didn't deserve this." I stared at the message for a moment, then replied, "Neither did you. Take care of yourself." As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Natalie was standing in the doorway. The porch light cast a soft glow around her. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. Lost. Alone. 2 weeks later, everything was in motion. The divorce process had begun. My lawyer, Catherine Davis, was sharp, relentless, and precise. She filed everything: custody petitions, financial investigations, and formal complaints regarding the missing money. But what came next? I hadn't expected. I was at the hotel with Dylan and Chloe when my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Harlow, a woman's voice said. My name is Jennifer Reeves. I work with your wife. I stepped away to take the call. Yes. I think I have information you need, she said carefully. About Natalie and Trevor. Something in her tone made me listen. Can we meet? She asked. 30 minutes later, I was sitting across from her in a quiet coffee shop. She looked composed, but there was tension in her eyes, like someone who had been holding something in for too long. I should have come forward sooner, she said, sliding a flash drive across the table. But I was afraid. Afraid of what? I asked. My job. The consequences, she admitted. But staying silent felt worse. I picked up the drive, turning it over in my hand. What's on this? She took a breath. Emails. Internal messages. Security footage from the office. My chest tightened. Natalie and Trevor have been involved for 3 years, she said. I went still. 3. I repeated. She nodded. It started when their companies partnered on a project. They thought they were careful, but not careful enough. 3 years. Almost everything I thought I knew about my life had been a lie. There's more, she added quietly. 6 months ago, I overheard Natalie talking in the break room. She was laughing, saying you'd never notice money going missing because you were too trusting. Something inside me hardened completely. She made it sound like a joke, Jennifer said. Like it didn't matter. I looked down at the flash drive in my hand, then back at her. Why tell me now? I asked. Her expression sharpened. Because she came into the office yesterday pretending nothing happened, she said. She told people you were controlling, that you were the problem. I felt a quiet anger settle deep inside. Several of us knew the truth, Jennifer continued. We just needed someone to speak first. I nodded slowly, then closed my hand around the flash drive. The truth wasn't just clear anymore. It was overwhelming, and this time, there would be no hiding from it. The flash drive contained everything. Emails between Natalie and Trevor, long, detailed exchanges filled with complaints about their spouses, quiet mockery of their homes, and plans for weekend away. There were timestamps, dates, locations, proof that stretched far beyond anything I'd already uncovered. Then came the security footage. Late nights at the office, empty conference rooms, 2 figures who thought no one was watching. But the worst part wasn't visual. It was audio. Jennifer had recorded a phone call without Natalie knowing. Her voice came through clearly. Cold, confident, certain. He'll never leave me, Trevor. He's too invested in the family image. There was a pause. And even if he did, I'd take everything. My grip tightened around the flash drive. His parents left him that inheritance. He thinks I don't know about it. That's our future. We just have to be patient. I closed my eyes. That inheritance had been meant for my children, for their education, for stability, for a future I thought we were building together. She had known about it, and she had been planning to take it. I didn't hesitate. I sent everything to my lawyer immediately. Every file, every recording, every piece of truth. That afternoon, my phone rang again. This time, it was Natalie's mother. Vincent, we need to talk, she said, her voice strained. I hesitated for a moment. Go ahead. There was a long sigh on the other end. We found out everything, she said. All of it. I stayed silent. We're horrified, she continued, her voice breaking. We didn't raise her this way. We taught her about commitment, about integrity. I don't know where we went wrong. Her words felt heavy, not defensive, not dismissive, just broken. We are not taking her side, she added firmly. We've told her she's not welcome here until she takes responsibility. That surprised me, and we would like to keep seeing Dylan and Chloe, if you'll allow it. I looked down at my hands. There are grandchildren, she said softly. They shouldn't suffer because of this. I exhaled slowly. Of course, I said. They love you both. Thank you, she whispered. And Vincent, we're truly sorry. When the call ended, I sat in silence. The truth had spread. There was no controlling it anymore. No rewriting it. No hiding from it. A message came in a few minutes later. Paige, can we talk? Coffee tomorrow. I replied immediately. 10 a.m. See you there. The next morning, she looked different. Tired. Thinner. But there was something new in her eyes. Strength. The kind that comes from surviving something you never thought you could. Thank you for meeting me, she said softly as we sat down. Of course, I replied. How are you holding up? She gave a small, sad smile. Some days are harder than others. She looked down at her cup for a moment. I filed for divorce, she added. He's trying to convince me to take him back. She shook her head. That's not happening. I nodded. You deserve better. She studied me for a moment. Actually, there's something else I need to tell you. Her hands tightened slightly around the mug. I was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer 8 months ago. The words hit hard. I'm so sorry, I said quietly. I've been in treatment, she continued. The future is uncertain. She looked up at me. I knew something was wrong in my marriage during that time. I just didn't know it was this. There was a long pause between us. You didn't deserve that, I said. Neither did you, she replied. A faint smile touched her lips. I've been thinking about second chances, she said. About not wasting time on people who don't value you. Her eyes met mine. And about spending time with people who do. There was something fragile in that moment, but also real. Would you want to have dinner sometime? She asked gently. Not to talk about all this. Just as two people. I didn't need long to think. I like that, I said. We talked for hours after that. About our kids. About everything we had lost. And everything we might still build. When we parted, she hugged me. Simple, warm, honest. And for the first time in months, I felt something shift inside me. Hope. That evening, my lawyer called. The case is strong, she said. Very strong. There are going to be consequences. Real ones. The custody hearing was scheduled. The financial case was moving forward. Everything was aligning. After the call, I sat with Dylan and Chloe. I have some news, I said. They both looked at me, waiting. Things are moving forward. And your grandparents, they're supporting us. Chloe nodded slowly. What about Mom? She asked quietly. I chose my words carefully. She has to face the results of her choices, I said. But that's not your burden. I pull them both closer. No matter what happens, you two come first. Always. Dylan looked at me for a long moment. Then he said something I would never forget. I'm proud of you, Dad. Those words meant more than anything else. Months passed. The divorce was finalized. Custody arrangements were set. Natalie faced the consequences of everything she had done. Trevor lost everything he had built. But I didn't focus on them anymore. I focused on rebuilding, on my children, on moving forward. Then one morning, I got a call from a local paper. They wanted me to write something. A statement. A story. I thought about it. Then I said yes. That night, I sat down and began to write. My name is Vincent Harlow. Some of you may have heard parts of my story. The betrayal. The lies. The collapse of a life I thought was secure. But I'm not writing this for sympathy. And I'm not writing it for revenge. I paused, then continued. I'm writing this because sometimes the truth breaks everything. But sometimes, that's exactly what it needs to do. So you can finally build something real. I finished writing the letter late into the night. Every word came from a place that had been broken open, but not destroyed. I ignored the warning signs. I wrote, because I believe in the strength of marriage and the goodness of the people I loved. That trust was used against me. I paused for a long moment, then continued. But I want to be clear. I am not a victim. I am a father who chose to stand for his children. I am a man who chose dignity over bitterness. And I believe that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than comfortable lies. The words felt steady, certain. To anyone facing something similar, trust your instincts. Look closely. Ask questions. Choosing yourself is not selfish. Sometimes it is survival. I lean back in my chair, exhaling slowly. I'm grateful to those who stood by us, to the people who chose honesty over silence, and to those who reminded me that betrayal is not always the end of a story. Sometimes it is the beginning of something better. I signed it simply, Vincent Harlow. The letter was published the following Wednesday morning. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages poured in. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years, former colleagues, even strangers. People offering support, sharing their own stories, thanking me for speaking openly. By evening, the story had spread far beyond anything I expected. Natalie called. Her voice was sharp, angry. How could you do this to me? She demanded. How could you humiliate me like that? I didn't mention your name, I said calmly. I told my truth. You knew people would figure it out. If you feel exposed, I replied, that's not because of what I said. It's because of what happened. She hung up, but the call that mattered came shortly after. Paige, I read your letter, she said softly. It was brave. Thank you, I replied. There was a pause. I've been thinking, she continued carefully, about us, about what this could become. I listened quietly. I know my situation isn't simple, she said, and I know everything is still new, but I don't want fear to make decisions for me anymore. I smiled slightly. I don't care about simple, I said. I care about real. There was a quiet breath on the other end. I feel the same way, she admitted. Then let's stop overthinking it, I said. That weekend, she came over for dinner. Dylan and Chloe had met her before, but this felt different. Intentional. We cooked together. We laughed. And for the first time in months, the space we were in felt like a home again. After the kids went to bed, Paige and I sat quietly on the couch. Her hand rested in mine. Thank you, she said softly, for seeing me, not just for what I've been through, but for who I am. I looked at her. Thank you for choosing to move forward, I said. We sat there in silence. Comfortable. Real. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't before. Being broken open doesn't always mean being destroyed. Sometimes it means making room. Room for something better. 1 year later, a small chapel in downtown Portland was filled with the people who mattered most. Dylan and Chloe sat in the front row. Paige's sister stood beside her. My closest friend stood beside me. Even her parents were there. And quietly, so were Natalie's parents, people who had chosen to stand for what was right, even when it was difficult. When Paige walked down the aisle, everything else faded. She wore a simple cream dress. Her smile was radiant, even after everything she had endured. Her treatment had been difficult, but she was fighting, and she was still here. We take every day we're given, I whispered as she reached me. She smiled softly, and we make it count. The ceremony was simple, personal, meaningful. When we were pronounced married, Dylan and Chloe cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, Dylan pulled me aside. Dad, he said, I'm really happy for you. I felt my chest tighten. She's good for you, he added. For all of us. She is, I said. Chloe joined us, wrapping her arms around both of us. We're going to be okay, right? She asked. I looked at them both. Better than okay, I said. Later that evening, as Paige and I danced, she rested her head lightly against me. Have you heard anything about Natalie? She asked quietly. I nodded slightly. She's living on her own now, working, trying to rebuild. And him, not doing well, I said. They're not together anymore. Paige sighed softly. When something is built on lies, she said, it doesn't survive reality. Something like that, I replied. Months earlier, Natalie had come to see me. She had looked different, worn down, desperate. Can we try again? She had asked. Maybe in a different way? I had looked at her, unable to recognize the person in front of me. You broke what we had, I told her, and I've moved forward. She had left in tears, and I had felt nothing. Now, standing here, holding Paige close, I felt everything. Peace, gratitude, love. Do you ever think about how this all started? Paige asked. I smiled faintly. With that apology? She laughed softly. Yes. If that moment hadn't happened, I said, I might still be living in a lie. She rested her head against me again. Then maybe something good came from it, she said. Maybe, I replied. Later, as the reception began to wind down, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I opened the message. Congratulations. I hope you're happy. I'm sorry for everything. I read it once. Then I deleted it. No reply. No anger. No need. When I walked back inside, I saw Paige with Dylan and Chloe. They were laughing together. Comfortable. Connected. My family. Not the one I had once imagined, but the one I had chosen. The one I had fought for. I walked over, placed my arm around Paige, and kissed her gently on the head. Ready? She asked. I smiled. I already started, I said quietly. The moment I stopped carrying someone else's mistakes and started living for what truly matters. She took my hand, and together, We stepped forward. Whatever time we had, we would make it count. And that's where this story truly ends. Not in betrayal, not in loss, but in truth. Because sometimes the hardest moments in life don't destroy you. They reveal you. Vincent lost the life he thought he had. The trust, the certainty, the future he had carefully built. But in losing all of that, he found something far more powerful: clarity, strength, and the courage to choose a better path. He chose his children. He chose honesty. He chose peace over chaos and truth over illusion. And in the end, he didn't just survive the storm. He rebuilt something stronger from it. So if there's one thing to take from this story, it's this: never ignore what your heart is trying to tell you. And never be afraid to walk away from what breaks you, to find what heals you. Backhand index pointing right, if this story moved you, inspired you, or made you reflect, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful, emotional stories like this. Because sometimes the stories we tell can change the way we see our own lives. And yours might be the next one that begins again.